What's up, guys? It's time for another episode of Damien Ruins Horror Movies. My name is Damien. This episode is brought to you by Cool Dude Inc. There's a link below if you want to go check out some shirts like this one. Go down there and make yourself look good. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe and share if you like hanging out with me every week or so. And slide that notification button on, too. Then it'll let you know when I drop an episode because I don't really have a schedule these days. With that said, let's get to it. This is Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday from 1993. And it's the ninth one I've done. If you go to playlists on this channel, you can start from part 1 and watch. I've reviewed all of them up to this one. I got 2 left if you count Freddy versus Jason. And this being 1993 is interesting because in the 90s it seems like Jason, Freddy, and Michael Myers all got like this kind of, within a few years of each, within 5 years, the first half of the 90s, something like that, they all got kind of like this supernatural back story. It's like we kind of knew basically how they started killing, but then in the 90s, which was not, the first half of the 90s was not the greatest era for horror, but there were a few good ones still. And this movie in particular, I remember this movie. I don't remember this movie. That's how little, I remember it coming out, but I don't remember anything significant about it. It was just kind of bleh. But I've just watched it a few more times. It's not bad. I actually like it. And I think why people shit on it is because basically it does everything Part 8 didn't. It does everything that we wanted Part 8 to do. Part 8, we wanted him to get out of Crystal Lake. We wanted him in New York City. We wanted to see him against a lot more people, not just counselors and shit. And then that movie failed because only like the last 25 minutes he was in New York, and it was just it was a disappointment. But then this movie does that. It's still in the Crystal Lake area, but it's just a different take on Jason. And I think people got mad at it for not feeling like a Friday the 13th movie, even though it kind of does. It just feels like an early 90s horror movie, though. It feels like it's got that, it was made when Tales from the Crypt was still on the air. So I enjoyed it. I love movies from that era. That's when I was in high school. It opens up Crystal Lake. A woman shows up at a cabin in time for the light bulb to burn out. So she replaces it, and then she goes to take a bath. And we hear that all familiar, and the light goes back out. So she has a little change of heart about the old bath. Gets up, but we still get to see a little boobage. And then the infamous cock-blocking Jason shows up and chases her around. But wait a minute, it's a trap. She lures him to a SWAT team, and they blow him away. And they shoot his head clean off. And in the distance, you can see his still beating heart. They take him to the morgue, and Jason somehow works himself back to life by somehow getting JFK from Bubba Hotep, who's the coroner, to eat his heart. And then Jason takes over his body, and the bloodbath ensues as he escapes the morgue. And 90s Jason begins. American Case File with Robert Campbell. We are officially introduced to 21 Jump Street's Captain Fuller, the bounty hunter, who's dressed like Clint Eastwood in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, who says he will capture and kill Jason for $500,000. What are they, raising prices at the local bounty hunter's clothing store? Captain Fuller heads to Crystal Lake, and he finds he finds a diner. And Crystal Lake is kind of turned into kind of like a tourist town. The diner serves Voorhees burgers. But he's not there for the Voorhees burgers. He's there for Diana, who's played by Wilma from Buck Rogers. And he warns her that Jason's here, and he's coming after her. Captain Fuller says a lot of cryptic shit that doesn't really, it's like he can't just tell people what's up. It takes him, we're like 45 minutes into the movie when he finally spills the beans. But anyway, Jason's after Diana and her daughter Jessica. And Sheriff Landis, is that a tribute to John Landis? Sheriff Landis is her boyfriend, and he wants to know why Fuller is harassing her. And he's just like, you know what, I've had enough of this. You're going with me. I'm taking you to jail. That's what he does when people piss him off. He takes them to jail. And on the way out, Fuller says, Better lock your doors. Like, he's like this guy who knows everything about Jason, what his next move is going to be, and if he can't be there to save her, his only advice is lock your door. What is locking your fucking door going to do? Elsewhere, we're introduced to Steven, who we did see in the diner in an earlier scene, but he's picking up 3 backpacking hitchhikers, 2 girls and a guy, but it's not random. He knows one of the girls, Deborah, and along the way he turns into like this annoying Uber driver, or like that cab driver from MTV back in the day. Starts asking all these fucking questions and shit, and finally they just say, well, the reason we're going to Crystal Lake is so that we can break all the Friday the 13th survival tips. We're going to get high, practice unsafe premarital sex, and party. As Steven drops him off, Deborah tries to get him to stay, but he's like, no, I can't. I gotta go. I gotta meet with this lady later. But you guys have fun. He drives off. They all go for a little swim after they set up camp. They come back. We get a little more boobage. And then Deborah sits outside the tent by the campfire while the couple go inside the tent to make fuck, which is probably about 7 feet away from where Deborah's sitting. Then JFK Jason shows up and fucking kills Deborah. But we get a little more boobage from the fuckers inside the tent. And leave it to Jason. He can't just let them finish and let them die happy. No, he's got to kill them right in the middle of it. What a dick. But I gotta admit, the kills in this movie are actually pretty good. But who the fuck were those guys? At first, I assumed that Deborah was Jessica and Steven was ditching her because he was going to go put the moves on Mom. It's confusing because every woman in this movie has red hair. It's like some kind of weird ginger version of Village of the Damned. But those are basically just 3 random people who have nothing to do with the story. All they do is they're just letting you see Jason's journey, and he kills people along his way to where he's going, kind of like Blackenstein. And if you don't know who Blackenstein is, go back through my catalog and check out episode 76. I'll link it in the notes in the bottom. Back in town, Diana's finishing up the longest shift ever as she gets scared by her cop friend Josh. Josh's girlfriend shows up all horn-dogged out, but then JFK Jason shows up at the same time. Diana's gone at this point. And JFK Jason kills the 2 of them. Well, he kills the girlfriend, and then he takes Josh back to the Voorhees house. And for some reason, well, he takes over his body, but he strips off all of his clothes and has him strapped down. And I just got 2 questions. 1, where did Jason learn how to shave? And 2, why did he strip him down naked when once he takes over his body, he has to put his clothes right back on? Like, he doesn't take anybody else's clothes off. Everybody else, he's just standing there and he's like, makes out with them and takes out their body with his creepy big tongue. But for some reason, Josh, I don't know. It's not like Josh was that tougher. Josh wasn't some badass. Diana gets a call from her daughter, Jessica. And they're talking for a little bit. And then Jason in Josh's body shows up and like grabs the phone. And she's like, what the hell? And she sees in the mirror and she can see Josh's reflection is Jason. So she's like, oh shit, and starts trying to fight back. But just then Steven shows up, and so much for his little afternoon delight, which is a nighttime delight. Whatever the hell he thought was going to happen, because now he's in a fight for his life trying to save her, but it's no use because she gets stabbed in the back and killed. And then him and Jason go at it, and he stabs Jason. He runs him through with a fire poker and pushes him out the window, like 2 stories. And just then, Sheriff Landis shows up. And he's like, what the hell? So Steven's like, I gotta explain. It wasn't me. It was this guy. It was this guy. Let's go look out the window. He looks, and Josh's body is gone. Well, feels a little bit like Halloween 1979 at the end. So now, Sheriff Landis is pissed. And I don't blame him, because at his age, he's not going to get another piece like that, and now she's dead, and now he's blaming Steven for her death. So he takes him downtown, and he locks him up right next door to Captain Fuller, which is more of a Mayberry thing than a coincidence. And Fuller's like, so I heard you killed the mother of the woman you love. But I know that's not true. I know it was Jason. And like, how do you... This literally just happened. How do you know any of that, Fuller? You've been in this cell all day. It's not like they debriefed you on the way to bring Steven there. There's no way he could know that. Normally you would break somebody's fingers to extract information out of them, but Fuller has his own nonsensical way of doing it since he's a sadistic son of a bitch. He's like, let me break your fingers and I'll give you some information. The only way to kill Jason is to destroy his heart. Like zombies and brains. And now that Diana is dead, Jessica's the only one who can do it. Diana was Jason's sister, and only a Voorhees can kill a Voorhees. So Jason wants to kill Jessica and her baby, or take over Jessica's body or the baby, and Steven is the father. Oh wait, does this mean that Alice was a Voorhees? Because she killed his mother, and she had red hair. Steven busts out of jail, meets his baby, and gets a car. He goes to the Voorhees house and finds the Necronomicon. And it's not like hidden. The Necronomicon's not like hidden. Like, he fingers through it. Then he tries to hide in the closet and gets trapped in there as Robert Campbell shows up. Because Robert's doing a little expose on the Voorhees house, but he's got to go through it first and set stuff up. He gets on the phone, and he starts telling the guy on the other end how he stole Diana's body from the morgue, and he's planting it in the Voorhees house so they can mysteriously discover it. And then, and also that he's banging her daughter, which I forgot to mention that Robert Campbell and Jessica are together. And Steven's in earshot. He can hear all this, but he's like trapped, so he can't do anything about it. But he's like, oh, it's like, that's not really something you want to hear. But just then, Officer Voorhees busts in and starts making out with Robert and takes over his body. And then he pays a visit to Jessica, who's crying in the shower, and he turns off her power, and he tries to make out with her and take over her body. But Steven saves the day. Steven carries her out of the house and throws her into his car, and Robert chases him. Robert's right next to him. As he starts to kind of explain, he's like, oh shit. So he hits Robert with the car, and then backs over him and drives off, and then they stop, and he starts trying to explain to her, but she's not having it. She's like, what the hell? And then she beats his ass and kicks him out of the car and drives off. This guy who's just gone 2-0 with Jason, and he gets beat up by a girl, and he just lays in the road. And she goes down to the police station and tells the cops that Steven killed Robert, so they send Randy. Randy I haven't mentioned. Randy's the one that he's been cool to Steven this whole time, even though they had to put him in jail, but he's the one that Steven took his gun, and when he escaped, he kind of beat him up and escaped with his gun. So Randy goes back to that spot, and Steven's still in that spot, and starts kicking his ass, and they go at it for a little bit, and Steven's in the spot where it's like, it's that old, I gotta convince these people this stuff, and they don't believe me, why won't you believe me, put on the sunglasses, man. And Randy mentions that Jessica's at the station, so he's like, oh, she's at the station? Handcuff me. Take me to jail. So they go back to jail, and Robert's there. It's funny because his hands are behind his back. As soon as he sees Robert, he jumps. This is like impossible. He jumps up, pulls his hands underneath his ass and legs, and now his hands are in front of him, and I think he grabs Randy's gun, or he grabs the gun that he stole from Randy earlier, and he starts shooting the shit out of Robert. Which is like, it's really weird because he's right next to Jessica. Saving Jessica, he shoots the shit out of Robert, and then they like make a run for it, but it's like, dude, once you shot him a couple times and had him stunned, you should have handed the gun to Jessica, and then she could have finished him off. Why did you get your fingers broken for some information and advice that you had no intention of using? He suffered 2 broken fingers learning how to kill Jason and apparently got nothing out of it. Fuller told you how to do it. So Steven escapes with Jessica, and they go to the diner because that's where the baby is. Except the diner folk that worked there, that worked with Jessica's mom, they turn on him. They're like, you ain't getting this baby. And then Robert Jason shows up, starts killing everybody. So they're like, oh shit. They run down to where the baby's supposed to be, but there's no baby. Instead, there's a note. It's from Fuller. It says, come to the Voorhees house alone. I don't remember if it had Alice's name on it or not. how the fuck did Fuller, because Fuller's been in jail the whole time and somehow he escaped and beat him there. He was there when they just left. He beat him there, got the baby, and got to the Voorhees house. But the reason he wants her to come alone is because he knows Jason. I think I said earlier that Jason could go in her body. I guess Jason can't go in her body. So if she shows up alone, he knows it's her. But if she shows up with somebody, the person she's with could be Jason. So she ditches Steve and heads over to the house and finds Fuller. And then Steven finds the note and is like, oh, there's the Voorhees out. Why did she leave the note there? No. It seems like you would grab the note, read it, and then, but she just like looked down and read it and was like, uh-oh. Fuller gives her a magic dagger and explains to her that it's up to her to kill him. Otherwise, it'll never be over. Only a Voorhees can kill a Voorhees. Well, that and the Lakes and Alice. Apparently, maybe Freddy. I don't know. We haven't gotten that far yet. Then Randy and Landis show up. And Fuller somehow steps on it. The house is all creaky. Fuller falls through the floor and gets impaled by, like, rebar in the basement. So he's down there. He hears that Randy and Landis are up there, and he's telling her, it's like, kill them both. Kill them both. One of them's probably Jason. You don't know which one. Let's be safe. And she's like, I can't kill them. And he's like, you need to kill both of them. So Landis is the one acting weird, so she kills Landis, but it turns out Randy is Jason, which is weird because I always figured if two guys showed up, the one talking is not Jason, and the one who's silent would be Jason. Because Jason's taken over these bodies this whole time throughout this movie, and he's never said a word when he's someone else. But suddenly Randy comes in acting completely normal until he's not. Until all of a sudden Randy's like, yeah, I'm actually Jason. It's like, how come? So Randy grabs the baby and starts trying to French kiss it so he could take over its body, which would have been weird. Well, I think he would have been full-blown Jason if he could get in the baby's body. I don't know if he can get in Jessica's body or not. But it doesn't matter because Steven shows up in time to save the day again. And he slashes, I think... Oh, yeah, he's got a machete that he stole from the diner that was mounted on the wall, because that's fucking normal. And he hits Randy across the neck and slices his like throat open. And so he falls to the ground, and little inner demon Jason pops out, or oozes out and escapes and starts growing, gets into this weird monster thing. And it runs off to the basement, and it finds, Jason's little demon finds Diana's body. And Steven's like, shit, to Fuller. He's like, shit, does the Voorhees have to be alive? And Fuller's like, nope. And Fuller's right. It doesn't have to be alive because it's not alive. And Jason hops in there anyway. And now Jason is full on. He's not taking over Diana's body. He's fucking Jason. Which is kind of weird because if I was Jason, I'd be like, it's like Jason likes looking like that. I would like take over like a good looking dude's body and like say, hey, maybe try and live life for the first time ever. But say, he's like, no, I want to look like I have a hockey mask on and I want to look weird. Which is, it's good to be that like comfortable with yourself, I guess. But he kills Fuller while they hide the baby. And after a showdown between Jason and Steven involving a shovel and a jungle gym, Jessica leaps into the air and takes Jason's back, and she's got the dagger and she stabs him in the chest from behind, and he kind of still struggles and tries to put up a fight, and she and Steven finish him off, sending him to hell. For once and for all, maybe. As the sun comes up, they can now be a family. The wind blows the dirt off of Jason's mask, and then Freddy Krueger's claw comes out and snatches it back into hell. Dun dun dun! What the fuck? Because this time we didn't know if there would ever be a Freddy versus Jason movie. The Badass Award goes to Steven for never giving up on love. Although he initially seemed like a bit of a bitch, he proved he would do anything to save his girl and his daughter, and he went 5-0 against Jason. Not bad for a band nerd with 2 broken fingers who still wears his high school letterman's jacket. What did we learn? Survival tales. Dead or alive, don't be alone with Jason. Don't fuck in the woods. Maybe learn about your girlfriend's family and history before you decide to procreate with her. Alright guys, that's it for now. Only 2 more to go. See you next time.